to find ways to come up with money. Not so much ways to find ways with saving money, but then you could fault Republicans for that as well, couldn't you? Anyway, this Daily Caller News Foundation editor-in-chief Chris Bedford on the implications of all of this, Independent Women's Forum fellow Kelsey Bolar. Kelsey, any of you begin with you. Elizabeth Warren is doing something a little different here. This is the same candidate, of course, who had an asset tax that she wants to employ on those at a certain level, depending on what it is, 10 million or 25 million. It's a moving target. This is essentially a different tax to raise even more money. But I'm wondering, others are following the lead here, not necessarily to the same extent, but higher taxes, and particularly on the wealthy and/or corporations. Where's this going?
Absolutely. Across the board, Democrats are calling for higher taxes, which would ultimately hit not just these big corporations and wealthy billionaires. It would hit middle-class Americans when you look at the programs that they are actually pushing. Medicare for All for example, the White House put out estimates that it would cost the average American family $17,000 a year. So I think these programs sound good in theory. Who doesn't want free stuff? But if you look at the extent to which Democrats are promising through all these programs, government-funded childcare, maternity leave, tuition-free college, Medicare for All, the list goes on and on. There's no way that taxing the rich is going to pay for it all.
You know, what's interesting, Chris, is if you look at this, I'd love to see, and on both parties' part, a willingness to, be just as creative with finding ways to rein in spending. Generally, they're not. So let's say one of these Democratic candidates, let's say it's Elizabeth Warren, gets in. I mean, much would depend on the makeup of the House or the Senate. But are we going to go through a wave now of a higher tax environment after a relatively low tax environment?
Saving money, Neil, is such a 2010 idea. I mean, that's not popular anywhere. Not popular here in Washington, certainly not popular in the campaign trail with the Democrats. And I think that is possible. We have the tax cuts that the president pushed through. And as long as Mitch McConnell is still in charge of the U.S. Senate, you're not going to see those tax cuts go away. He's going to protect those very much. But will he be in charge in 2 years? And when you're a company like Amazon or a lot of the big tech companies that traditionally, since Calvin Coolidge, could count on Republicans to defend them and protect them from Democrats or big spenders, right now the president doesn't really like them very much. They've picked a fight with a lot of conservatives. They've alienated some of the conservative voters. So if they lose someone like Mitch McConnell in the U.S. Senate, they could see their taxes go up.
If you think about it, and I don't know where this will ultimately go, Kelsey, but it's just a matter of how much they want to raise taxes or ending loopholes and the rest and all. But certainly, to a man or a woman, I mean, of the prominent Democratic candidates, they all want to stick it to the rich. They will want to go after these companies who they say have gotten a free ride, like Amazon, for example. And I'm wondering what the effect would be, particularly of those companies who could obviously, go elsewhere.
Right. Well, this is where Republicans really need to step in and do a good job communicating on what these tax cuts have done for businesses and American families. We have tax day just around the corner. It's important to have this conversation and to also talk about the extent to which Democrats are now calling for these socialist programs that would end up hurting Americans in their pocketbook. The economy is doing great. Unemployment is down. It's like, why do we want to try to fix something that's not broken? It really makes no sense.
The other thing I'm just curious, Chris, is let's say that we had a divided Congress as we do now, and a divided and the White House under another party's control. You have to think that when Barack Obama was reelected, he was able ultimately to get, having said elections have consequences, that delayed hike in the upper rate. He got it through. Now, that helped with a lot of Democratic votes and the like, but I always think that people, and particularly Republicans who poo-poo this phenomenon, or call it socialism or call it whatever, do so at their own peril. There's a great deal of support for a lot of the spending, and if you're not the one who has to worry about the taxing, you're for it.
I mean, outside of the Tea Party, I've never seen a popular movement in the country to actually cut spending or anything like that. People
Right.
like spending. People typically don't lose elections on it. And if I were one of these big corporations with the wealthy, I'd even be worried about a Republican House of Representatives, because that's a lot more answerable to the feelings of the people than maybe the U.S. Senate is. And right now, this populist bubble that made Bernie Sanders almost knock off Hillary Clinton, that made President Donald Trump the president, that populism hasn't really gone away in this country. There's still a huge surge and a huge appetite, and there are a lot of companies making a lot of money. And when we called a lot of these major U.S. companies like Amazon and Google and said, do you consider yourself an American company? Most of them dodged the question or said, no, they're global companies. And a lot of the voters are getting angry at that kind of attitude, and maybe are just less likely to defend them, and congressmen will follow suit.
Yeah, I think that's the way it generally goes. Chris, Kelsey, thank you both very, very much.